O wives of Lamech, listen to my speech. For I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we turn to Genesis chapter 4 and read the consequences in Cain's family of his murder and his refusal to repent, his turning away from God, moving east into a land of wandering, into the land of Nod. Now we see some worldly things being developed. We see livestock production, we see music, and we see the building of things with bronze and iron, metallurgy. We see the building of a city. Alongside this, we have pride, and we have a man rising up and ruling over and making himself, as it were, as God over his fellow men. And this is the way that the world has gone, and this is the way that we still see it. Men rising up and considering that they are above the law and emphasizing the material things of the world. And this is contrasted in our reading with Adam and Eve, who have another son, Seth, and his descendants call on the Lord. Let's read together from verse 16. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mahajul, and Mahajul begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The name of one was Adar, and the name of the second was Zilhah. And Adar bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute. And as for Zilhah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Then Lamech said to his wives, Adar and Zilhah, hear my voice. O wives of Lamech, listen to my speech. For I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enosh. Then men began to call on the name of the Lord. And may the Lord bless these words to us. So Cain's family was away from the presence of the Lord. They went away. They chose to go that path. Cain didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't repent. He bemoaned. He was remorseful for his punishment. But he didn't repent. He never said, I should never have killed Abel. He would not admit his mistake. So he knew his wife. And some say, where did he get a wife from? Well, obviously Cain's wife was one of his sisters. We're told subsequently that Adam and Eve had sons and daughters. And while the focus on the story is on the men, because the men have been given the responsibility for leadership and headship, the sisters were there, and they provided the wives in this first family. Indeed, the practice of marrying sisters and half-sisters and close relatives continued to the time of Abraham, for his wife was his half-sister, the daughter of his father, but not his mother. And we say, well, that's not legal. Well, it was at that time, because remember, Adam and Eve were perfect. They weren't loaded down with all of the genetic mutations that have accumulated, particularly since the flood. These were people who were living for 900 odd years in their lives. and they were strong, they were intelligent, and they were prolific. And the population of the world grew very quickly and dramatically. And so Cain's wife was one of his sisters, and she bore Enoch. And as we said, he was fearful, so he built a walled city, and he named it after his son. So they built a stockade, and it grew. The family grew. It was safe, protecting himself from the fear that he had, the unknown fear of others who might come and seek to destroy him. Well, the family grew, and we come to his great-grandson Lamech. And Lamech has even bigger ideas of himself. He then has visions of grandeur for himself. So he takes 2 wives. Polygamy did not begin in the godly line. It began in Cain's line. Although it occurs in a few instances in the scriptures, it is not the normal practice in the scriptures, in the godly line. The normal practice throughout the scriptures is 1 man and 1 wife. But Lamech saw himself as a king, and so he took 2 wives. And these were privileged people, and his sons established great industry. One of them was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. Another were musicians. They play the harp and the flute. And so in their long lives that these people had, they had the ability to develop and explore new skills and develop these arts and crafts. For another of Lamech's sons was Tubal-Cain. He bears the name Cain, and he was instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. So he was a builder. And there was a sister, Naamah. But the attitude that Lamech has is shown in his little speech. A young man wounded him, bruised him. Now, we're not told what the circumstances of that were, whether he was angry because of something that had happened, or whether he was just messing around. But Lamech's response was very strong. He killed that young man who had hurt him. And he said, well, if Cain is avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold. In other words, he's saying, I'm 70 times more important than my great-grandfather Cain. And so he established himself as a ruler and as a despot, an absolute ruler, a monarch over the people in his kingdom. So you have the mixture of beauty in the crafts, of music, of productivity, all these things of the world, mixed in with murder and pride and strife and polygamy. This is how the world has continued apart from God. But the contrast is made with the family of Adam. Adam and Eve, having seen what had happened to Cain and Abel, have another son, Seth, whom they seek to bring up to know God. And so, in that family, they begin to call upon the name of the Lord. The contrast is to rely on your own ingenuity, the walls of your city, your productivity, your music, your craftsmanship, and your strength, as opposed to calling upon the Lord for your help. Well, who are you relying on? Your own resources, your own entertainment, or are you calling upon the Lord?